Welcome back live. It's SportsGrid live from Las Vegas right here at the BetMGM Sportsbook at the MGM Grand. Excited to bring you more action live on the street here from SportsGrid live in Las Vegas. It's been a hell of a week so far. We continue to bring you more interviews and obviously try to give you continued angles on this game, storylines. We're trying to get as many storylines as possible, any relevant story that may come out that will impact this game. Really, in the last 24 hours or so, we saw the Sky Moore for the Chiefs is activated, so he's off IR, and he is going to be on the active roster. Another player to monitor is Jerick McKinnon. Jerick McKinnon, they have until Saturday at 4 p.m. to activate him. He was limited in practice yesterday, so he does have the ability to at least walk through right now and try to get a sense of exactly what he's going to look like as we head closer and closer to this game. And in talking to our expert, Adam Caplan, it looks like at the moment, McKinnon has a shot here. Word earlier in the week, probably unlikely, but McKinnon has a shot to play, and Adam will be on with us a little bit later this hour. Great interviews coming up today, by the way, with Adam Caplan and Ariel Epstein and Ken Fuchs, who's COO and head of sports at Caesars. But what we're seeing right now is the possibility that Jerick McKinnon may actually play. What's fascinating about that is he is used in high leverage situations. 4th and short, 3rd and short, goal line scenarios. Jerick McKinnon is that player that could come out of nowhere and potentially steal a touchdown. So no props posted for him just yet, but is somebody worth monitoring as we get closer to the game. The other major injury for the Chiefs, Joe Thuney, probably not going to happen. They are monitoring it day by day with the pectoral strain. But when the head coach says, I would bet on Allegretti starting in favor of Thuney, I think you have a sense of where that is. A very extreme long shot for Joe Thuney to play, I feel, in this Super Bowl. We all know Amenahu tore his ACL. He's out for the game. So we'll continue to monitor stories like that, and the fact that, of course, as it seems to happen, at some time at one point during Super Bowl week every year, the 49ers fire alarm got pulled at 6 a.m. this morning. So I don't know how late they sleep in, but for a 6:30 p.m. game, they are pushing that wake-up time back. I don't know that anybody's going to be waking up 12 hours before kick, but they had to today as somebody pulled the fire alarm. Prankster, I guess. Chiefs fan, perhaps, but you never can tell. And that's the biggest storyline coming out of today regarding the teams. Obviously very closed environments for those teams, and we'll bring you those stories from the regulated press conferences as much as we can. So some other action in Vegas. Sun was out a little bit today in Vegas. A little bit more rain, a little bit more sun. We're hoping to have sun as we head a little bit closer to Sunday, so everybody can enjoy the city, walk around from hotel to hotel, on the Strip, off the Strip, wherever you may be. Maybe folks traveling in from out of town get in at 18 holes or something like that. But obviously with a roof over our heads and the game on Sunday, the weather isn't a major factor other than trying to enjoy the city. And I've certainly been able to. We're working hard here at SportsGrid live from Las Vegas, but we have the opportunity to bring you all different types of people to interview. So Sportsbook, head of sports, like I said, Ken Fuchs. We got Ariel Epstein, my former colleague at SportsGrid. She's now with Fanatics Sportsbook, and Adam Caplan, giving some inside information. We walk through the matchups a little bit more there. Adam's great with player news and his ability to break down the game. So we'll make sure we get to that in this hour. In hour number 2, we'll have Rick Haro, sports marketer extraordinaire. He'll be on with us and making sure that he delivers all the information regarding, what is the media impact. I have some expertise in media as well. What is the media impact going to look like? What is that number going to look like when we open up the browser on Tuesday morning? How many viewers will it be? Could it crest to 120 million viewers? Entirely possible. I'm sure you'll see record-breaking streaming numbers for the Super Bowl this year. Plus, Rick has a lot of sense of what's going to happen with the Super Bowl commercials, what is the impact on certain brands, and everything else related to this game. And what is the impact on the NFL's business overall? Obviously, it's the largest professional league that we have, and the ratings continue to astound. But as Roger Goodell gave his press conference on Monday, a little bit of a limited press conference compared to years past, invite only, and it was on Monday instead of Wednesday. He said he wanted to focus on the players, but I also think there was a little bit of misdirection from him in saying that, because I think he just does not want to continue to have people question exactly what's gone on during Super Bowl week. He bristled at the thought of the Niners practice field. He bristled and said, that's been tested many times over by experts, so let's move on to the next question. He did talk a little bit about streaming, though. It's a world I know pretty well. I obviously work for a streaming network here at SportsGrid, and I have a background in working in that type of technology as well. But somebody asked, is there a time when you could see a streaming only or streaming first Super Bowl? And he said, not in my tenure, and Rodgers not expected to leave anytime soon. We'll be here at least through the end of the decade, it's anticipated. So, streaming impact, it's going to be a linear television product for the foreseeable future as long as he's around, and as long as most of you are around, you'll have to find some sort of linear network on which to watch. But the good news is the NFL has embraced streaming options, your ability to stream above and beyond those linear options. So, those are some of the storylines that have happened this week. As I continue to talk to people to get a sense of where their heads are at in this game, I think it is really split. Gabe Morency, my partner in crime here on SportsGrid, I think broke it down pretty well. A lot of the football people are on the Chiefs. A lot of wagerers, a lot of people in sports betting leaning on San Francisco. So some of those people are one and the same, but I think those players, coaches, executives tend to lean towards the Chiefs. Is that the fear of Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid? I think it's a big part of it. I think it's what we're looking at when people saying they don't want to bet against Mahomes. How could I bet against Mahomes again? Some people losing twice on Mahomes so far this postseason versus the Bills and the Ravens. They don't want to do it a third time. That's not really why I arrived at the bet I arrived at. By the way, I was on Mahomes versus both the Bills and the Ravens. So I'm going to stick with it. I'm not going to bail on him now. And I'm trying to evaluate and make sure that I'm not being stubborn. Because to be honest, a couple of years ago, the COVID year, when the Chiefs tried to run it back against the Bucs, I was stubborn. Their offensive line had fallen apart, and they were facing a Bucs team that could put heat on the quarterback, and that they did. Mahomes limping around the field for much of that game as they got blown out, losing by several touchdowns. And we'll touch on that a little bit during the Ariel Epstein interview and how Tom Brady ended up with that MVP, but perhaps Devin White with 14 tackles and a game-clinching interception was perhaps that MVP. Super Bowl MVP, one of the most talked about props. The most talked about player, long shot player, Deebo Samuel, very consistently. People think he can have a huge impact on this game. At 25-1 for Super Bowl MVP, I know there's a lot of people taking shots. That price may come down even a little bit more. I wouldn't be surprised if Deebo goes off at 20-1 for Super Bowl MVP. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about some other angles towards the final score and the spread, winning margins after this. SportsGrid live from Las Vegas on the grid.
.47 is one of the hardest numbers to beat, period, for an NFL football game. A lot of combinations that can fall 47. You decide.
Of course.
You're getting great two-way action. That's what you want as the book. You don't have to move the number. Right. Biggest game of the year is the easiest game to book in the world.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
8 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. They reel off the Chiefs, do 21 straight points. They win the game 31-20.
I've been selling this, because of the $23 billion is going to be bet on this game in the States this Sunday. That's insane. And this place, Vegas, they're going to make billions of dollars if the Chiefs don't win.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
I'm digging deep, fellas. I'm digging deep. Christian McCaffrey minus 220. Donnie, how could you do that? The price point is way out of control in this. Keep it simple. The goal is to win money, not to outsmart everybody.
Mahomes is minus 140 to throw 2 touchdown passes. And if he's going to, every single thing suggests a wide receiver will haul in at least one, if not both.
Pro Football Today. Only on SportsGrid.
0 points scored in the fourth quarter of that Falcons Super Bowl, and the Niners were shut out.
Yep.
So in the 2 biggest games of the 2 Super Bowls, one as a coordinator, one as a head coach, he hasn't scored a single point in the fourth quarter. I tell you what, if they don't, on Sunday, they're not winning the game, bro.
Exactly.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Back at the MGM Grand, here's SportsGrid live from Las Vegas, talking about points that'll be scored in Super Bowl 58 this Sunday. And you can talk about the total, which has been locked in at 47.5 all week long, but there's other ways to attack this. Each individual team, what will they score? First half, second half. And something we found here this week that we like quite a bit is the ability for both teams to score at a certain threshold. Both teams to score 10, 20, or 30 points. What does that look like? So let's break it down right here. Both teams to score, this is on the BetMGM app, keep in mind, both teams to score 10 or more points, yes, minus 1,200. Obviously, we're in a market where we think the score is going to get to 47.5 unless there's a completely dominant performance. Both teams will get to 10. So, and the no for both teams not getting to 10, plus 625. So if you are in a position where you think the Niners blow out the Chiefs, similar to the Bucs did a few years ago, the Chiefs didn't get to 10 points. So plus 625, big payoff there. On the flip side, you think the Chiefs will really limit what the Niners are able to do? I don't see the game happening that way. They limited the Ravens quite a bit. The Ravens still got to 10 points. So keep in mind the risk associated with a bet like that. But 20 or more points? Yes, minus 110. So if you think this game is going to get into the 20s for both teams, and I heard Gabe Morency, he thinks it's 27-23. He likes both teams to get into the 20s. That's a minus 110 right there. Bet. So you're getting decent odds. You're not having to lay a lot of wood with that one. And on the no side, minus 120. So a little heavier juice there. I actually, as I get a little bit further into the week, I'm leaning that one of the teams doesn't score 20. I'm wavering as to whether or not I would place this bet. I don't think I would, because I still think that the Chiefs, who I am leaning towards, could get a victory at 23-20. That's still under. Both teams get to 20. I'd have a hard time betting the Niners to not score 20 points, although I do think from a game script standpoint, I think the Chiefs are going to try to control the clock. Isaiah Pacheco, a big part of the action for them. Path for him to be MVP, possibly. I've talked about it a lot this week. His number of touches, his ability to score a touchdown, maybe multiple touchdowns in order to earn that MVP and take it away from Patrick Mahomes, which would be a Herculean task in and of itself. So both teams to get to 20, no is minus 120. Now, 30 or more, this would be a lot of fun, obviously, if you're expecting a lot of points to be scored. Just like last year, 38-35 final, both teams get to 30. That's plus 675. So if you think this game can play out similar to how it did last year with Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes trading touchdowns, particularly in the second half, then you have a plus 675 bet there. Pretty interesting. I do not think both teams get to 30. If both teams do get to 30, clearly that game is up for grabs, but I would lean with the Niners getting there, getting the victory. I think high-scoring game impacts the Niners. I would go so far as to say if this game is over, I would lean Niners. If it's under, which I think, then I'd lean Chiefs. But both teams 30 or more, that's minus 1,400. Obviously, you have to lay a lot of wood if you think it's going to be a lower-scoring game. There's better ways to attack that, taking the under and a variety of other things that can be profitable without having to lay that kind of wood. There's other things out there like exact total points, Kansas City Chiefs total points, 49ers total points. I'll pat myself on the back one more time this week. I did call the correct score in the Rams-Bengals Super Bowl, 23-20. I don't know if I'll ever break down a game better than I did that day, but picking the exact score was 100-1. Gabe was looking at some last night, 27-23. That's plus 125. So, that's plus 1250. So you're going to get a big money return on something like that. I don't really recommend betting those types of bets. I think for the Super Bowl, for fun, you put a couple of bucks down on betting the exact score. You just take the winnings and laugh all the way to the bank. Don't get Gabe said to me yesterday, he's like, oh, that's right. I remember you picked that exact score. I was like, yeah, I put 20 bucks down on it. He's like, too bad it wasn't 200. He's right, but why would I put 200 bucks down on something that I think that is such a specific prediction like that? Luck was in my favor that day, including a missed extra point to help get me there. So you can bet all of those types of angles on the game. But something I wanted to focus on too is winning margin. So let me get to it here. We're live on the BetMGM app. So look, people are going to have futures right now on some of these teams, and perhaps you're comfortable laying 2 points or getting 2 points here in this position. But if you really, instead of predicting an exact score, if you feel like you have an angle on how close this game could be, you can go to winning margin by bands of score. For example, the 49ers to win a close game by 1 to 6 points. That's plus 310. So it gives you a little bit of a range. If you like the Niners, a 27-21 game, there you go. You're at plus 330. I actually think the Chiefs will win a close game. Chiefs by 1 to 6 plus 333. Sorry, the Niners was plus 310. Chiefs plus 333. So, again, it's getting specific, but I don't have to predict the exact score. I can just come up with something that I think the Chiefs win a close game, and there you go. By the way, you can take a couple of those markets. So you think the Chiefs win by under 12 points, you can take the Chiefs at plus 33 and the Chiefs at plus 550, separate those bets, have those bets separately done, and still find yourself a winner. You put $100 down on each, hypothetically, you can win $333 or you can win $550. You're laying out $200 obviously in that instance, but it does create a situation where you could be profitable if the Chiefs win the game by 10 points. Similar with the Niners. If you think the Niners are winning a game like that, you have similar odds, plus 310, plus 500. Now, I did this exact bet during the National Basketball Championship game when UConn played San Diego State. I picked a couple of different bands. I thought UConn would win comfortably. I picked a couple of different bands. UConn had a comfortable win. I think it was by 15. And that was a profitable night for me. So there are a lot of different ways to attack these games. You could obviously do it every week. People tend to not dive. People watching this program obviously dive a little bit deeper than the casual fan, but each and every week, it's hard to drill down on every single game. You have 16 games in a given week. To drill down on that type of specific prediction every week is hard. It's hard to do generally, but when you're not analyzing one game over the course of 2 weeks, it becomes even harder. You have a few days to figure out exactly what you're going to do. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. There are final score margins exactly by 3. If you think it's going to be a 3-point game, say I think it's going to be Chiefs 23, Niners 20, then you can get plus 450 to the yes on the Chiefs. So final score margin, you can do final score margin exactly by 3, exactly by 7. You have first play yardage. I think the first play of the game is over 4.5 yards. That's minus 115. Minus 115 on the other side as well. I think you can expect a run or a screen pass early to McCaffrey or Pacheco, depending on who gets the ball. And you think those are going to be over 5 yards, then you bet the over 4.5 yards. So either team to record a safety, that's plus 1,000. We had Teddy Covers on the other day talking about this bet. And the sharps, the razor blades, as my friend Dave Sharapan likes to call them, they'll get down on the no on the safety. That's minus 3,000. So it's a lot of juice. But most often, we're not getting a safety in the Super Bowl. We have had them in recent years. Tom Brady had one. We had one against the Broncos. Tom Brady had one against the Giants. You had one on the first play of the Broncos-Seahawks Super Bowl. So not out of the question. We've seen safeties in Super Bowls a number of times, but more often than not, it doesn't happen. It's just like betting the game to go to overtime. So when we come back, we'll start our slate of interviews live. SportsGrid live from Las Vegas at the MGM Grand.
Forget what your offense is, like the Baltimore Ravens did against the Kansas City Chiefs. Work off of Christian McCaffrey, but I do believe Brock Purdy is ready for the moment, at least play-calling wise.
Kyle Shanahan, who called the plays as the offensive coordinator, had a 25-point lead, and his running back, Devontae Freeman, with that 25-point lead, touched the ball 4 times in the second half.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Super Bowl is set in Vegas. We get a rematch from just a few years ago.
The only consistency in the playoffs has been Travis Kelce.
Brock Purdy, back-to-back leads throwing 1 touchdown pass, right? He can't win MVP with 1 touchdown pass.
I hate the Chiefs, but I bet on them.
This is going to be a game that is played inside a field goal now from a spread perspective.
All that matters is there's one game left, the big game.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
They have played terrible football, and yet they always win. Have you noticed? Everyone keeps talking about how bad the Niners suck as they win every week. They win every game, even games they should have. They're down 24-7, and they still won.
Now we have the first excuse when the Niners lose on Sunday night. They practiced on a bad field at UNLV. They didn't get the proper conditions.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
on the Grid. SportsGrid live from Las Vegas. Excited to be here with you, as we've been all week. Got some interviews lined up here. We pre-taped some over at Radio Row earlier today. Started with my friend Ariel Epstein, a.k.a. the Prop Queen. She's at Fanatic Sportsbook. Recently trademarked Prop Queen. So she and I talked about the game, her Ravens, and a bunch of other stuff. Here she is. We'll be right back after the interview.
Hey, everybody. Back on Radio Row, Mike Blewitt along with Ariel Epstein, my buddy, my partner in crime for years on SportsGrid. Now with Fanatic Sportsbook, and she is the Prop Queen, the trademarked Prop Queen.
Yes.
Excited for you. How did that process work out? How long did it take?
Well, my dad kind of did it. I mean, it's nice to have a lawyer as a father. It was his idea. He said, Ariel, you got to stop letting people call themselves Prop Queen. You've been the Prop Queen since SportsGrid. You have to be it. So he went and did the whole process, and it took about 6 months.
That's great.
Yeah,
great.
So it's trademarked.
So the Prop Queen here to talk about the game with Fanatic Sportsbook. So your initial thoughts on the game. Chiefs, an underdog. Patrick Mahomes, an underdog. He's excellent as an underdog. What do you think?
I still like the Niners. The Niners at -2, pretty good number to get them at. Their defense has been more consistent all year. The Niners can stop Isaiah Pacheco on the Chiefs' side. They have a great run D. The Niners offensively, they've got so much firepower. They have Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey who can run the football. I think you're going to see a lot of deception there.
I agree.
Brock Purdy doesn't necessarily have to throw the football much. You look back to the last time that Patrick Mahomes lost a Super Bowl, it was to one of the best quarterbacks in the history of the game, Tom Brady. They ran the football more. Brady only threw 29 times. I see the Niners playing a clean game, clean enough to beat this Chiefs team that, truthfully, they've gotten hot at the right time, just like the Eagles did last year. They just haven't been consistent.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that the Chiefs have had some peaks and valleys. The Niners, too, but they survived and advanced to this point. So since you are the Prop Queen, we've got to talk about some props.
Yeah.
Let's take the Niners first. Who jumps out to you on the prop market?
Based on what I just said, Brock Purdy under on his pass attempts. It's around 33.5. Purdy, again, doesn't have to throw the football too much. Give the ball to Christian McCaffrey. Run the time off the clock so that Mahomes doesn't have the football.
Right.
That should lead us to an under, just like Tom Brady with his 29 pass attempts. I see 29-30 for Purdy, who also has not had over 33.5 pass attempts on the road all season.
Right.
I look at neutral site games just like I look at a road game. That's my favorite Niners prop.
There's only two. There's certain numbers. Earlier in the week, it was 31.5. Only 2 times this year has he gone over 31.5.
Yeah.
The Super Bowl generally has such sharp numbers. It's the one number of all of them that jumped out to me. I feel like this is a little high. Win or lose, it feels high to me on Purdy.
I agree with that. I also was looking at the Niners wide receiver Deebo Samuel and his over on rushing yards. So last time that the Niners were in the playoffs last year, there was so much quarterback issue with the Niners. They had Brock Purdy get hurt. They had 3 different quarterbacks throughout the course of the year. If you look to the run they had with Jimmy Garoppolo, the last time that the Niners were in the Super Bowl, Shanahan was running with Deebo Samuel. Now, I know there was no Christian McCaffrey. It's even more likely now to use some deception and use Deebo Samuel in the backfield. He rushed for over 30 yards in all 3 playoff games that they played back in that 2019-2020 season. I'm looking at Deebo Samuel on the ground, and like you mentioned, these lines are sharp, and they've been going up all week on those rushing yards for Samuel.
Yeah, I'm with you on Deebo. Look, I think we all would concede that the most likely MVP candidates are going to be one of the 2 quarterbacks, but when you start to look at those longer shots, Deebo Samuel at 25-1 could be somebody, if he's able to get in the end zone a couple of times, that steals it. We've had 2 wide receivers win recently.
And it's actually, I love that you mentioned the MVP odds. Super Bowl MVP, this is the first time in a long time that I have seen a player who's not favored to win the Super Bowl be the favorite to be MVP. A good friend of mine, John Murray, who does trading at the Superbook here in Vegas, I asked him, I was like, John, why is Mahomes favored when Purdy is the favorite to win the Super Bowl? He said, there are so many Niners players, not Brock Purdy, that we're confident can still win Super Bowl MVP. Look at the storyline. Christian McCaffrey didn't win regular season MVP.
Right.
Maybe they give him Super Bowl MVP as a, sorry you didn't win MVP kind of thing.
Yeah.
And obviously he has to score 3 touchdowns, which is possible. Patrick Mahomes is plus 125 to win MVP. The next best is his tight end, Travis Kelce, and it's a huge drop-off to 16-1. And the next Chiefs player is Isaiah Pacheco at 30-1.
That's right.
Come on. It's just nuts that the book is looking at maybe we're not going to see a quarterback win MVP if it's the Niners.
All right. So, obviously, that Super Bowl MVP market is something that people like to bet. You don't always recommend long shots, but you have to look for a path. And somebody like Deebo Samuel, somebody like Isaiah Pacheco, if it's a Chiefs win, is somebody that I'm interested in at 35-1. I just feel like since I'm backing the Chiefs and you have to correlate all your bets, Pacheco saw 28 touches against your Ravens, even though he wasn't terribly productive. If he saw that kind of workload again and he broke a few, then he ends up having a huge monster game.
Do you remember, I don't know if you remember this from my SportsGrid days, I think last Super Bowl I did was that Super Bowl with the Bucks and the Chiefs when I worked here.
That sounds right.
And I think I was on In Game Live. And I said, and I was obsessed, and I said it on the morning after. I was my hair is like, also this thing is, no. So I was obsessed with the 100-1 on the Bucks linebacker, Devin White. I bet that $100.
14 tackles, right?
He had 14 tackles and the game-sealing interception. Tom Brady ends up winning MVP.
Yeah.
So it's definitely on my mind.
That's the heartbreaker with Super Bowl MVP, because you were right.
Yes, he was the better player.
And he didn't get the award. And James White in the comeback Super Bowl Pats win had really the game of his life, and Brady got the MVP.
Yes.
Damian Williams had a great game against the Niners last time, but Mahomes got the MVP. So it still leans quarterback. But again, 4 times in the last 10 years, we have not had a QB
if you like the
win
Niners,
the MVP.
clearly the odds makers are leaning towards it not being Brock Purdy.
So you and I, one of our favorite things that we did when we worked together was talk about defensive props. Anybody jump out to you on the defensive side of the ball?
You've got to look to the linebackers in San Francisco. It's got to be like any of those guys in the middle, because they're going to be trying to stop Isaiah Pacheco.
Yep.
And look at what the Chiefs have done in the last few weeks. They've just been dumping the ball off, short passes, dump off, short pass. Like, that's how they cut up the Ravens' defense in the first 2 drives 2 weeks ago. I look to the middle of the field for sure for the Niners.
Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw, those guys, those props up around 8.5 total tackles. Nick Bolton on the Chiefs side, that same number of around 8.5.
Yep.
So, all right, any other storylines from the game that we haven't touched on yet that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I love the longest reception props.
Yeah.
Justin Watson is a name that stands out to me, a real sleeper play. I went through all the Chiefs receivers because if you look at the Niners side, the Niners have given up a few deep balls each game. All the Chiefs receivers, I compared their home road splits and their season averages. Justin Watson is the best performing Chiefs receiver on the road when it comes to catching deep balls. Everyone else's drops, whether it's Travis Kelce or Rashee Rice, their number overall this season drops when they're on the road for a deep pass.
Right.
Justin Watson's averaging 17 yards per longest catch on the road this season, and his prop's only 12.5 for the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Take the over on 12.5 longest reception.
Catch last week and obviously down to punt. So he's a player that they do try to infuse in their game plan. So, all right, your Ravens. We got to talk about them for a minute. not in a
You're
look,
the first one to ask me today.
it's just in a now they're undergoing some transition now. Mike McDonald goes to Seattle. They still had an amazing season.
Yeah.
Didn't end the way you wanted it or the way they wanted it. But how do they bounce back from what happened last week?
The Ravens will be okay. The Ravens are still led by a great head coach in John Harbaugh. People sleep on him, but he has been a coach to get the Ravens into contention every year. Even in years that Lamar has had 0 receivers, the Ravens have always been dangerous. They went and got Roquan Smith. It didn't matter. When Ray Lewis was on the Ravens defense, it didn't matter who was defensive coordinator because Ray Lewis at the spearhead of it made that defense better.
Yeah.
That's what Roquan Smith does. He makes the defense better. I would love to see my guy Patrick Queen back there at linebacker. They could re-sign him. They've got to keep that offensive line healthy. Maybe get a veteran wide receiver for the Ravens. The Ravens won a Super Bowl because they had Anquan Boldin. This coming season, if Lamar Jackson can have a wide receiver that has the experience, look at what just happened last week. Zay Flowers drops a touchdown like on the 1 yard line. That was a rookie move. He had a great catch in the end zone for that first touchdown.
He did.
Second touchdown, thought he's inside, and he drops the ball because he thinks he's in the end zone, and he's not. Rookie mistake. So, yes, the Ravens are going to get more experience. Lamar Jackson was never in an AFC championship game before. Zay Flowers, that was his first year in the league. They're going to get experience, and they're going to get better. They could get better by having a wide receiver who's a veteran that will help Lamar. And then on the defensive side, yeah, it's going to be Zach Orr. That's fine. He's the DC. The Ravens all talk so highly of him.
Yeah.
So I'm all for the Ravens, in the next year or two that they could get back to where they were. And, the team, if you listen to anything that the team said afterwards in the press conference, all they talked about was, I want to win this for Lamar.
Yeah.
The team is behind their quarterback.
That's great. So, obviously, Zach Orr steps in there. We're talking about Patrick Queen from the prop queen herself, Ariel Epstein with Fanatics Sportsbook. Make sure to tune in. Follow her on social. She's a Niners backer. She loves Debo. Longest reception prop from Justin Watson.
Mm-hmm.
So keep an eye on those, and we'll be back with more on SportsGrid after this. There's my friend Ariel Epstein, a.k.a. the prop queen from Fanatics Sportsbook. Thanks to her for joining us here in Las Vegas. She just got into town, got right to set, film with me at Radio Row. Appreciate all the work that she did for us here at SportsGrid and for me today, getting us some interesting information. She's always had a really good angle on props, and follow her for even some defensive props that she may like as we get closer to the game. When we come back, we'll have some more interviews. SportsGrid Live from Las Vegas rolls on at the BetMGM Sportsbook right here at the MGM Grand.
Think about last year's game, it ends on the failed Hail Mary, and both teams run out onto the field. That's what you're looking for, is a game.
A chaotic end of the game.
You can't get the game.
Oh, great point. Yeah.
2-point spread in the game. Think it could come down to the wire. Everyone says script, Taylor slip, all this stuff. So I like 1,600, no Gatorade play.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
They have played terrible football, and yet they always win. Have you noticed? Everyone keeps talking about how bad the Niners suck as they win every week. They win every game, even games they should have. They're down 24-7, and they still won.
Now we have the first excuse when the Niners lose on Sunday night. They practiced on a bad field at UNLV. They didn't get the proper conditions.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
I'm digging deep, fellas. I'm digging deep. Christian McCaffrey minus 220. Donnie, how could you do that? The price point is way out of control in this. Keep it simple. The goal is to win money, not to outsmart everybody.
Mahomes is minus 140 to throw 2 touchdown passes. And if he's going to, every single thing suggests a wide receiver will haul in at least one, if not both.
Pro Football Today. Only on SportsGrid.
I saw a study that said 24% of Taylor Swift fans actually do follow the Chiefs now.
Sure.
And when you consider how many fans she has, it's quite a lot, 24%. Right?
Oh, yeah. You seen Travis Kelce's Instagram, his social media? Yeah. Everything. Right. It's huge.
Oh, no, listen. He's, like his agent said, he's going to be the next Rock. Like, they're setting him up to be, the next superstar.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
We are back, SportsGrid live from Las Vegas at the MGM Grand Casino and Hotel. Great venue, obviously, here for the last few days. We continue to roll on throughout the week, and we're talking the big game, Super Bowl 58. And I got a chance to sit down with Adam Caplan, somebody who's on with us every day, really, at SportsGrid during the football season. And I've done tons of shows with Pro Football Today and other shows. You find him on X.com and on social at Caplan NFL. He's an NFL insider reporter for PFN 365. He's on SiriusXM and here all throughout the week, every week on SportsGrid. Here's what he had to say about Super Bowl 58 on Radio Row earlier today.
Hey, everybody, live from Radio Row. Mike Blewitt here with Adam Caplan, my buddy from Pro Football Today for many years, and obviously helping us out this week on SportsGrid. So Super Bowl 58 just a couple of days away. These teams, we've seen some fluctuation in the line, up to 2.5 in certain places. 47.5 is the total. For you, what's the major storyline that you're thinking about?
There are a lot. I do radio in Kansas City every Thursday on WHB, and I mean, you could take quarterback versus quarterback, Reed versus Shanahan, the D coordinators, Steve Spagnuolo. The big talk here this week is this is like the 5th time it's come up. Does Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator for the Chiefs, if they win the Super Bowl, do we start talking about him for the Hall of Fame? I never even thought of that before.
Yeah.
But it keeps coming up because he's so good. And here's a guy who was fired by Sean Payton 8 years ago.
Right.
And he's rebuilt his career. He's phenomenal. And then when you really look at it, it's just the excellence of Mahomes and Andy Reid. One of these days he's going to retire. The next couple of years, I think it's going to happen.
Right.
I'm not saying now. I'm not saying after this game if they win.
Sure.
Then you have to think about his legacy. Is he right there with Belichick? He won't have as many rings, but if he doesn't retire and coaches 7 or 8 years, he might actually have more.
Right.
The best combo in my lifetime, Mahomes and Reid. Is there a better one, Mike, you could think of?
It's really just Brady and Belichick.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe, but the legacy that Tom Brady has created almost seems unmatched, but yet Patrick Mahomes is in his 4th Super Bowl at age 28, which breaks the record that Brady had. It took till Brady's 30th birthday before he did that. So it's a massive thing to follow and a massive legacy to try to match, but Reid and Mahomes really are getting it done. You mentioned a lot about Steve Spagnuolo. I think it's a massive part of this game. His ability to particularly lock teams down in the second half has frustrated a lot of offensive coordinators, including last week in Baltimore.
What's interesting, Mike, is they're one of the heavier man-cover teams in the NFL, about 36% in the regular season. They're way down. They're actually playing more zone than they have in a long time. And I think it's because the level of competition, man, it's hard. If you play a lot of man coverage, when you start playing against teams with better pass targets, it's really hard. That's another facet if you really want to go inside the numbers and inside football here. It's the chess match. It's Shanahan and his ability to create space for the pass targets to run and the quarterback to throw, and Purdy, versus Spags is a great strategist. And that is one of the storylines. That's probably Spags versus Shanahan. That's the top coaching one for me.
Right. So obviously focus on the players here for a moment.
Sure.
You've got Mahomes and his massive legacy. Brock Purdy, last pick in the draft, famously where he was drafted here just 2 years ago, or the draft was here 2 years ago when Brock Purdy was drafted, as well as Isaiah Pacheco in that draft. So 2 major players coming full circle back to Vegas. So with Brock Purdy perhaps not playing his best football against the Packers and the first half against Detroit being a little bit shaky, expectations for him coming into this.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because the big issue for them, the record is terrible in coming back from behind in fourth quarter. Terrible until these previous 2 games. And now they've got that, particularly the Detroit game, as you mentioned. I'll admit it. And not only did I say to Pharrell that Detroit will cover the number, I said, I'm not going to say they're going to win, but they're going to give the Niners a much better game than you think. And I think we all kind of agreed on coast to coast. But I didn't expect that. When they were up so big, I'm like, this is incredible.
Yeah.
And then they turn it over. It was almost like not so much what the Niners did, it's so much what they did. So that concerned me a little bit. But looking at the Niners here, they've got the firepower. The one thing that you don't like is they're very regimented in offense. They play a system. And when they get out of their comfort zone, they struggle, and that's what you've seen. But they did show, and they have that confidence that they beat Detroit, and they were way behind at half. Now, I understand they were at home. This is a neutral site game. We don't know yet. This is my 23rd Super Bowl. You get the flavor of the week. Okay, who's got more fans? Don't know that yet. I'm definitely seeing plenty of Kelsey jerseys, seeing a lot of number 15 Mahomes jerseys.
Yeah.
Seeing McCaffrey jerseys, Niners paraphernalia, but definitely Chiefs so far this week.
Yeah,
not a lot, but
I'd say there's a component of us being in Vegas. I think there are a lot of native Vegas residents that are Niners fans.
Sure.
So the people that are traveling in, we're seeing a lot of Chiefs fans and starting to even out. So, all right, beyond the quarterbacks, player that you think could have the biggest impact in this game?
It's a good question. L'Jarius Sneed, star corner for the Chiefs. Again, he's more of a man-cover corner because Ayuk is so good. I would expect him to be on Ayuk. Now, I know they played in 2022, Week 7, super high-scoring game. Let's face it, Spags' defense is like now the best in the National Football League.
Yep.
I don't take a lot of that game with super high-scoring. The Chiefs aren't scoring a lot of points anymore, and their defense is locked down. I would see that matchup, Sneed on Ayuk. I expect that to happen when they play man coverage. Kelsey, who crushes zone defenses. The Niners run about 89% zone. Kelsey should do well. He had over 900 yards against zone coverage in the regular season. I expect that to happen. So I want to see what Steve Wilks, the D coordinator for the Niners, does because they play out a lot of zone. These matchups do favor the Chiefs a little bit. Remember, Mahomes, when that three-quarters of the way, he was struggling, right? Remember that terrible loss they had at home against the Raiders?
Yeah, of course.
Ever since then, it's been uphill. I mean, they're playing really well. So I would say Sneed, and then could Chris Jones be a factor? Niners have a great, really not a great, but they're really good at tackle, particularly obviously Williams.
Yeah,
they're not as good in the interior. And can Jones push the pocket and make Purdy move? Because again, when you make him move and he doesn't have that timing down, he's not a good quarterback. That's a 3-step drop. The ball's got to be out at 1.75. When he's got to do it in 3 seconds, he's not as effective.
So you can see great perspective there from Adam. We're talking about impact players. I think a lot of you are thinking Mahomes, Purdy. Yep. He went with defense. I really do think it's a big part of the game as well. It's why I'm leaning towards the Chiefs. You said the magic word for me, matchups.
Yep.
It's nothing wrong with the Niners. Everybody throwing their best pitch. I think the San Francisco 49ers are the best team, but we have a Kansas City defense that does match up well against them. You said L'Jarius Sneed on Ayuk. I've basically eliminated Ayuk from any thought of him having a big game because Sneed is on him.
Yeah, in fact, if you're looking to do what I call the fantasy props, you got to understand matchups. I do like Kelsey in this game. I know it's somewhere around 70 yards.
Yeah,
I expect him to have a good game. Look, Rashee Rice has been awesome as a rookie. They don't really use a third receiver.
Yeah,
unfortunately, and that's kind of where they're at. And then you've got the McCaffrey factor. He's always capable of doing great. I can't wait to see what Spags is in store for him in fact, he was traded at the trade deadline last year, so I don't know if did he play against him in 22?
I don't believe so.
Yeah. So we'll see what Spags has in store for him, and obviously he could be an X factor because of the run and pass game.
Yeah. So all right. So Kelsey factor there for the Chiefs. On the San Francisco side, it runs through McCaffrey.
Oh, yeah.
Any expectations for we've talked a lot on this network this week about Deebo Samuel and his potential to impact the game.
And their record is well under 500 when he doesn't play.
Right.
Obviously, when he plays, it's well over 500. You're good to bring it up because in the run game, watch number 32, Nick Bolton, the middle linebacker for the Chiefs. He's phenomenal. He had that wrist surgery. He was out a while. Their run defense was not good when he wasn't able to play.
Right.
He's back. Willie Gay's over his neck problem. He missed a lot of time late in the season. Their defense suffered. He's back. He'll be ready to go. The only injury I'm concerned about is Joe Tooney, who probably won't play.
Yes.
With the pectoral strain, they're holding out hope somehow he could play, but I can't imagine he'll play without practicing because they don't know if he could function.
Yeah.
With strength.
Tooney really hasn't practiced. Jerick McKinnon did practice in a limited fashion yesterday.
He's awesome. 10 touchdowns last year, 22. A lot of them came in the red zone. I think he had 7 red zone touchdowns.
Yeah.
That's a prop. If it's like plus 400 or something, you got to look at that because he has to be at. They've Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern to activate him off injured reserve.
Got it. They'd much rather use him than Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Mecole Hardman.
You can't depend on him.
Right.
No question. No, Mecole Hardman, forget about it. You're right. You're right.
Right. Okay, so we got the game lined up. I want to give 1 more minute.
Sure.
2 more minutes maybe on some of the recent coaching hires.
Of course.
One that stands out to you that you think is a great fit.
I don't know what the fans – I know the Commander fans wanted Ben Johnson. It just didn't work out. I love the hire of Dan Quinn. Got to the Super Bowl with the Falcons. He just was given too much responsibility to end his career there. They had some bad drafts to end it, but He's got great energy and passion. Players always buy in with him. That's a very underrated hire. They just don't have a very good roster.
Yeah.
And Adam Peters is their GM who came from the Niners. So I think they'll form a great tandem there. I like that hire. That probably, to me, was the one that not enough people were talking about. Of course, it was the last one. Look, Ben McDonald, Mike McDonald, sorry.
Yeah.
Mike McDonald, the hire of Seattle, and he's only 36.
Yeah.
That is really young. He is not hired as offense coordinator. I know that I'm told they have interest in Eric Bieniemy. They're talking to a lot of guys.
Right.
We'll see who becomes their offense coordinator. That's really helpful.
Yeah.
To figure out how they're going to get Geno Smith back to where he was 2 years ago when he came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
That's a fun one. And the one here in Vegas, I worked with Antonio Pierce at ESPN in 2017, Mike.
Right.
That's crazy. In fact, Antonio, because I remember talking about what he was doing before he went to Arizona State with Herm Edwards, he had car dealerships.
Right.
This is crazy. 7 years later, he's the head coach of the National Football League.
Yeah, it's quite a turnaround. So
yeah.
Great perspective as always. Adam Caplan, you find him on X.com at Caplan NFL, and he's here with us all week at the Grid, and you'll see him on Super Bowl Sunday as well.
Tremendous perspective from Adam Caplan there. Again, find him on X.com at Caplan NFL. He'll be on the network all throughout the weekend and on Super Bowl Sunday, Super Bowl 58, just a few days away. Talked about a lot there about how he thinks L'Jarius Sneed could be the most impactful player in the game, eliminating Brandon Ayuk. Perhaps he limits Deebo Samuel to some extent. That corner tandem in McDuffie and Sneed is something I've talked about a lot on the network throughout the week. I think they will play a huge factor in trying to at least limit what the Niners are able to do. And Adam also talked about some of those coaching hires. He loves the hire of Dan Quinn to Washington. Josh Harris, the new owner of the Commanders there, went through an exhaustive search. We thought Ben Johnson could be the head coach. Was it going to be Mike McDonald from the Ravens? Turns out it's Dan Quinn. I was going to be surprised if Dan Quinn did not land one of the opening coaching jobs this cycle. And it ends up he needed somebody to probably back out before he got it. But Dan Quinn, a head coach again in D.C. and right here in Las Vegas. Antonio Pierce. It really has been an unbelievable transformation from him retiring, doing some broadcasting for ESPN, and then winding up as head coach of the Raiders. It's been a quick ascent. Obviously, the players love him. There are going to be questions about the Raiders' ability to succeed when they're working with an uncertain quarterback situation. They have some high-profile players like Devontae Adams, but how much talent, and Max Crosby, how much talent do they have overall to compete in a division that's gotten very crowded with high-profile coaches in Jim Harbaugh, already Andy Reid, and obviously Sean Payton. So Antonio Pierce really has his work cut out for him on the coaching front, and trying to help rebuild that roster is the former Chargers GM, Tom Telesco. So we're going to close it out when we come back with a little bit more information from Warren Sharp, live from Las Vegas. It's SportsGrid live from Las Vegas, right here at the MGM Grand.
Brady, they don't call pass interference nearly as much as they used to. They're letting the guys play this year over the last couple of months. Vinovich has the reputation of letting them play. We saw he called 9 penalties only in the last Super Bowl. I've already placed the bet. Total accepted penalties in the Super Bowl under 10.5.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
If he doesn't run well, the Chiefs are really in trouble. If McCaffrey doesn't run well, there's a lot more options that you can actually use at that point. And that's how I'm trying to approach it and effectively. But also, Pacheco, anytime touchdown, if they're going to score a touchdown, probably going to be him.
That's a good look. Attempts from Pacheco, if you believe Kansas City's going to play their style. If you don't, then maybe you go under that total in regards to that.
Pro Football Today. Only on SportsGrid.
8 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. They reel off the Chiefs, do 21 straight points. They win the game 31-20.
I've been selling this, because of the $23 billion is going to be bet on this game in the States this Sunday. That's insane. And this place, Vegas, they're going to make billions of dollars if the Chiefs don't win.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
You a hat guy? Oh, I've got hats. I've got a jillion hats. I hear I don't have as many hats as you, but I don't.
You don't. I have a hat bag.
He has a hat bag.
I have a hat bag. I carry this
that's
around.
not a purse or man bag. It's a hat
ridiculous.
bag.
This is it. Look,
I love it.
I got to go everywhere.
And by the way, the whole Randy Moss receiver versus Randy Moss TV guy, the mistaken identity and all that. How can you confuse us, right? He's got hair. He's got hair, and I don't.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Closing out hour number one, we got Warren Sharp coming up here talking about the San Francisco 49ers penchant for using two running back sets and how that could be effective on Sunday during Super Bowl 58.
The San Francisco 49ers run the ball with two running back sets more than any team in the NFL this year. Now, the Kansas City Chiefs have a lot of experience going up against teams that like to utilize two running back sets, be it 21 personnel, 22 personnel, etc. They just went up against the Miami Dolphins, who use two back sets at the second highest rate and actually lead the NFL in usage of 21 personnel. They also just played the Baltimore Ravens, who rank number 3 in usage rate of two back sets. In fact, of the top 13 teams in usage of two back sets, the Kansas City Chiefs this year have played 13 games against them. So they've got a lot of experience going up against teams that like to use two running backs when they're running the football. However, experience is one thing, performance is another. And the Kansas City Chiefs' performance against these teams when they're using two back sets has been absolutely dreadful. Against two running back sets, the Kansas City Chiefs ranked 23rd in EPA per attempt, 21st in success rate, and 27th in yards per carry. But specifically against 21 personnel runs on early downs, which is what the 49ers love to do, the Kansas City Chiefs defense ranks number 30 in EPA per attempt, number 30 in success rate, and number 30 in yards per carry, allowing 6 yards per carry. This is going to be on Steve Spagnuolo to devise a game plan that's going to be able to figure out a way to slow down these two running back sets of the San Francisco 49ers. It's not going to be easy. They haven't fared well against it, but expect them to see it early and often in the big game.
So for all the impact players that we talk about, Christian McCaffrey being one of them, Kyle Juszczyk, does he become a big factor in what Warren was talking about? He's the second running back, typically in the two running back set. So great stuff there. And Steve Spagnuolo, I trust him to devise that game plan. We'll see exactly how that works out and how Kyle Shanahan and Spagnuolo go against one another. So when we come back, it's hour number 2. More interviews? Absolutely, right here at the MGM Grand. The SportsGrid live from Las Vegas. Be right back after this.